Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Final Say radio show with your host, Brett Rappaport, and the co-host, John Rappaport. I want to welcome our next guest to the audience. This is DerryckGreen, who is with the National Center for Public Policy. DerryckGreen, welcome to the Final Say radio show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, it's certainly been a very interesting week. Well, actually, it's probably coming on 2 weeks now with this whole Chick-fil-A issue, and it's not just about Chick-fil-A. There's a bigger issue at hand here, and I think the issue touches on censorship, but it also touches on the differences between the two parties and the two schools of thought when you're looking at mayors from cities, whether it's the Chicago mayor, the Boston mayor, or the New York mayor.
Well, you're right about that, and you know, Bloomberg came out with a statement this past week that, you know, I don't normally agree with Bloomberg, but, you know, he said that government and these mayors shouldn't be, you know, putting businesses under religious and political purity tests as litmus tests to whether or not they are able to open a business. That's not government's job, and I happen to agree with that. And so for mayors like Rahm Emanuel and the mayor of Boston, and, you know, I think it was San Francisco as well, to come out, in Washington, D.C., to come out to say that just because, you know, the owners of Chick-fil-A differ in opinion with them, they can't go through it. That's not only censorship, I think that borders on fascism as well.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. It's very interesting, and there's also a sense of hypocrisy in this issue. For instance, when you look at Rahm Emanuel, he is putting out a message very clearly that he wants to ban Chick-fil-A, the business, from Chicago because the owner has voiced an opinion on an issue. However, he's willing to have Louis Farrakhan come visit him, who has, and now Louis Farrakhan, if you're not familiar with him, audience, Louis Farrakhan has some hate towards probably just about every organization or group of people in America and around the world. I mean, it's really shocking.
Including America.
Oh, including America.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Rahm Emanuel came out and said that Chick-fil-A doesn't share Chicago's values. Now, Chick-fil-A, as a corporation, you know, they don't have values, but the owner has biblically based values. So what he's saying is that Chicago doesn't have, you know, an objective standard of right and wrong, you know, of treating people the way one wants to be treated, yet he goes and gets, you know, a raging anti-Semite, a raging racist to come in and try to help, you know, the gang problem. I just don't, it's not only hypocritical, it's absurd.
Well, it is. I have to question Rahm Emanuel's values, not Chicago. I mean, who would take an entire city or a type of people and try to label them all as one thing? You know, this is an individual thing, and it comes down, as we said earlier, everyone in this country has a First Amendment right, and there's also many other amendments that protect their rights to be able to voice their opinion and have freedoms to feel the way they do about a certain issue and share that with people without being attacked.
That's right. That's right. And again, if it's you know, something where he disagrees, that's fine. But let, you know, the people of Chicago and these respective cities where these mayors have spoken out, let them, you know, dictate their opinion with their dollars. I mean, isn't that what liberty is all about?
Not only that, but if the mayor is going to express his opinion, he can express his personal counter-opinion the same way that the Chick-fil-A executive expressed their opinion. But there's two business issues here that bother me. One is so many of the franchisees who start Chick-fil-A's, these are people who may have mortgaged their home, put their life on the line. They're working 100-hour weeks or at least 70, 80-hour weeks. You know, they have all this to risk, and when people start playing games, they're not playing games. At the end of the day, they're not going to affect the pocketbook of the man who made the comment in the first place, whether, you know, irrespective of his right to say it. They're actually going to potentially do great harm to people who actually take the risk and create the jobs in their own neighborhoods, which is ludicrous.
Well, it is, but we have to remember that these individual business owners that mortgaged their homes and sacrificed everything to start a business, you know, didn't build that on their own, right? So theoretically, from our president's perspective, they might not, you know, have as bad of a hit as you know, we might think. But you're absolutely right. You know, their families are suffering, and not just those people who mortgage their homes and sacrifice what they do to open these businesses. they're also sacrificing potential jobs in these cities where, you know, for example, Chicago, their unemployment rate is higher than the national average. You know, Washington, same thing. So you're right, it is affecting those individual families, but it's also affecting those families who would otherwise be employed, you know, if these mayors, you know, weren't trying to prevent them from you know, opening the business.
That's a terrific point. When you think about how many of those jobs also serve two purposes, right? Many of the people who take those jobs, those are the starter jobs. Those are the first jobs many people have. They may not be very high paying, but they teach them work ethic, value, and so forth.
That's right.
They're also the jobs that many senior citizens will often take when they find that after retiring they don't have enough money and they need to find something that they can do on a part-time basis. And
right.
And I think they're hurting them. The other point I wanted to make, I'd like to get your comment on, is the immediate thing that came to me shortly after that announcement. Jeff Bezos was brought up, the Amazon lead, and he said, you know, he spoke with his wallet and he backed the other side, if you will. And so my immediate reaction was, okay, but so what are we going to do here? A game of tit for tat? And now all of a sudden, you know, millions of people are going to start boycotting Amazon. And just a couple hours ago, I saw online that 1 million moms have decided to protest and no longer will purchase things on Amazon. I don't support that either. I think it's a game that is going to hurt our economy at a time when we can least afford it.
You're right, and again, you know, what's the ultimate purpose? You know, I am a doctoral student right now, so every quarter I have to buy a minimum of 20 books, and I get them from Amazon. You know, I'm not going to stop getting my books from Amazon because of what you know, the position that he took. And again, that's one of the great things about living in this country is that, you know, he has the right to speak with his dollars in you know, directions and causes and issues that he chooses, and I can choose to support or not support. Ultimately, like you said, the tit-for-tat game is really not going to accomplish much. So, you know, I disagree with his stance, but that isn't going to prevent me from stopping purchasing my books because he actually offers a product that I desperately need at a price that I can afford. You know, so it just It doesn't make sense.
And where's this end game supposed to go? Are we supposed to go to LinkedIn and now all of a sudden our LinkedIn profiles are supposed to list, you know, our opinion on a scale of 1 to 5 on the top 10 political, you know, hot buttons, and that determines whether we get hired or who could be our friends or, you know, whether we want to accept a job. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is, and you know, I don't really necessarily think we're that far off from something as crazy as that because, you know, now you have businesses who are checking Facebook profiles and Twitter feeds to see, you know, what people are saying and, you know, using that as a determining factor on whether or not to hire, you know, a potential candidate. So, you know, this is a very slippery slope that I think that we're on right now, and I think that we should probably come to grips with it and kind of decide, do we really want to go that far or do we want to stop and kind of rein it in a little bit?
Sure. Derrick, I want to read a quote that you had actually put out. Protests against Chick-fil-A represent one more glaring demonstration of how those who profess to exemplify the intrinsic worth of tolerance and diversity lack the very virtues they self-righteously claim to hold, especially when it comes to Christianity. And you're absolutely right. And the two words, tolerance and diversity, and, you know, as a conservative, I'm tolerant of anyone. I may not like your policy, and I will certainly use the right venues to support my policies against yours, but I will never stop you from voicing your opinion.
Right. And you know, it's interesting, as a conservative in general, you know, part of being a conservative is being tolerant, you know, but being a black conservative, you have to be even more tolerant and, you know, and have to, you know, kind of diversify what you hear directed at you. And so you're absolutely right. And so what I see with this particular incident and incidents like this actually is that whatever, you know, people, let's say in this example, the homosexual advocates or progressive project upon conservatives or, you know, people who are on the right side of the aisle, whatever they project onto us, it seems to me that they embody those values, and whichever values that they try to say that they embody are actually characteristics of their political opponents. You know what I mean? So you know, it's one of those things where for them tolerance and diversity just means accepting whatever they say or do wholeheartedely. And
sure,
I think that's wrong.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I think we all agree on that. Just real quickly, I know I introduced you as being you are part of the National Center for Public Policy, but in particular, you're with the Project 21. Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's Project 21 is simply a vehicle of the National Center for Public Policy Research that provides conservatives and moderates in the African American community, black community, an opportunity to voice their opinions on different issues that important to all Americans, but specifically to the black community. So issues is this issue here, economics, unemployment, things like that. It just kind of gives us an opportunity to voice our positions to counter what is generally seen as a monolithic thought process in the black community.
Oh, very good. You mentioned something, unemployment, and I think while America has certainly suffered together in very high unemployment for many years now, I would think that the black community and the Hispanic community and several other communities have suffered a little greater over the last 3 or 4 years.
Oh, the amount of suffering economically has been horrible, and the fact that it happened underneath a black president is exceptionally telling.
Yes.
So, again, I guess this is another example of why people shouldn't vote for anyone based on the color of their skin, because after you get past that point, if you don't share any type of commonality and values, what else do you have? So you have a majority of black Americans voting for a black president, but yet, black unemployment is over 14%. Black unemployment for teenagers is 40%. So, and to tie this in with what's going on with Chick-fil-A, these are the type of jobs that low-skilled black Americans to get into the workforce would actually be having, and they're trying to stand in the way of that. So once you combine all these type of issues, you start to really say, are these the type of policies that are best reflecting, myself as a black American or the black community? And, hopefully this opens a lot of eyes and opens a lot of ears.
And sadly,
absolutely.
And sadly, instead of the president holding up young black entrepreneurs and showing people how, no matter how good or bad the economy is, if you focus, if you find the right skills, if you really put enough effort in, you can achieve opportunity. And celebrating opportunity, he's putting a great risk on the streets by taking young men who historically, young men under the age of 25 have a lot of testosterone, right? So the last group of people you ever want to have stressed out. And he's creating a new social stress of saying everybody else is to blame, instead of saying, look, we're in hard straits, let's forget about who's to blame, let's work together, and here's some examples. And it bothers me so I love what your organization is focused on, because I think that these folks need to know that it's okay to disagree with the commander-in-chief, and the color of his skin is irrelevant in this equation.
Absolutely, and I think that, I think the last 3 years and the next few months, 4 years I should say, there's going to be really eye-opening, and I'm thinking optimistically for the black community, because a lot of times when you think and voice differing opinions of a black person in leadership, you're denigrated and you're called all sorts of names and things of that nature. And so I think there's many more blacks that think along these lines. They just don't want to open themselves up for the type of ridicule and condescension that they're going to get, many times the same condescension that they've actually leveled out. And so the president's missed a big opportunity to kind of, put in place, whether it's issues, policies, whatever the case may be, to speak directly to his most loyal constituency, because, you look at the whole picture, there's no wonder why the black community, especially young black men, have such a nihilistic view of life, because, like you said, they've been told that it's everybody's fault trying to keep them down and things of that nature. So, and you have black leaders constantly reinforcing this type of message, of course there's going to be no hope. And where's the hope found? In government. And so it just perpetuates a self-defeating type of mentality and behavior, and it's sad, the opportunity that he missed. It's tragic, actually.
Well, what makes it so tragic is that these lost opportunities, whether it's this president or any other president, you can't get back this time. And the increased length of unemployment for people, or people losing their homes, or the loss of income. I mean, there's so many factors. People and their families can't make this up. And I strongly wish, and we talk about this on the show all the time, it's about time that as a nation we started doing things that were best for not only the country, but best for the family, and not best for any particular party. Right,
and that's key, because once we start doing things that's best for Americans, all those things that we put up as political dividers fall. You know, so now we're doing things that are in the best interest of everybody. The problem is that I think that from the center left, they have a lot to lose politically, and I think they know that. And at the expense of Americans not getting this time back and not being able to progress as quickly as they would like, they're going to sacrifice that for political gain. And I think that whoever's in office, just like you said, whether it's the executive or the congressional, whatever, we have to start coming together and passing policies and initiatives both on the local level, state, and federal that's going to benefit Americans as a whole.
Sure, absolutely. Well, Derrick Green, I want to thank you so much for joining us today on the Final Say radio show. It has been a pleasure speaking with you on all these issues. And could you give the website so people could go find out more about Project 21 and the National Center for Public Policy Research?
Sure. Just go to nationalcenter.org, and there'll be like a little radio button type button, and you can hit Project 21, and it gives you, commentaries that we've done, press releases, history, the whole nine.
Great, excellent. And Derrick, thank you again, and we look forward to having you sometime in the future.
Brett and John, thank you.